On today's episode, our first episode, I talk about my history as a 40K player. Adam Abramowitz and I have a chat about his new season coming up, and my team talks about our goals for the next season and where we're headed. My name is Justin Kemple, and this is The Primary Objective. All right, guys, I want to take you back in time a little bit, back all the way to the year 1997. 1997 was a big year for me. It was when I actually moved from where I grew up to out here in Colorado. And I had originally been living in Arkansas, and I moved all the way out here to Brighton, Colorado, which is a little town outside of Denver. And I just want to go back here because this is really when my Warhammer career started, I guess. I was only 10 years old, so 20 years ago now. I was playing video games. I loved Pokemon. And routinely, I would go to a shop called The Game Trader, which was in Brighton, Colorado. And one day, when I was there at The Game Trader on a Sunday, I do believe, they had the back door open, and I could see that there was a room in the back, and there were some people playing a game back there, and I really wasn't sure what it was, so I asked the store owner, and he's like, "Oh, well, they're playing Warhammer," and I had no idea what Warhammer was, so I asked him, I was like, "What's this?" And he's like, "Well, you have miniatures, you move them around, you've got all kinds of different fantasy armies, and you fight battles." So I was like, I have to check this out. That was the start of my Warhammer career. I went back there, I checked out these guys, teenagers at the time, playing this awesome game with elves and orcs and all kinds of crazy stuff. And I decided that's what I wanted to do. So I begged my mom to buy me some models, and I started out with a small high elf army. Now, I'm not going to go too much into everything I've done in Warhammer here, but suffice to say, I was not very good at this game. I think I played for years. I mean, multiple years without winning a single game. And at the time, High Elves were the best army that you could play pretty much. So I was a horrible player. I decided that I wanted to try 40K when I was a little bit older, maybe a couple years after playing Fantasy. So I started with my first army, which was Dark Eldar. And that was about as worse an army as you could possibly play in 40K at the time. I do believe it was 3rd edition, so maybe 4th. But man, I really sucked then. I could not win a game to save my life. It was horrible. But advancing forward a little bit, I decided not to play Eldar anymore, and I was going to try out Tyranids. I built my big Tyranid army. They were all blue and ice themed. I painted the whole army, and I decided that I wanted to play in a tournament. So I go up to a town called Fort Collins here, and I play in my very first tournament. And I almost immediately regretted that. I lost all 3 games. I think I was tabled in all 3 games by like turn 3 or 4. It was pretty horrible. But instead of deciding that, man, I'm so horrible at this game, I'm never going to play again, it was something I loved regardless. And I said to myself, man, I can do better. I can be better at this game. So I searched the internet, as young as it was at this time, for any kind of tactics I could learn. And I came across a guy who was playing Eldar, just regular Craft World Eldar, playing the Simehead jet bikes. And I apologize that I don't remember his name. He's a very popular podcaster now, and he made a lot of great videos and tactics. And I built my all jet bike army, and I started playing at a competitive level with the all jet bike Eldar. And that's really where my 40K experience turned around, because then I was learning actually how to play the game, how to be good at the game, what units were efficient, and how to use them. We are going to talk about my history in much further detail in future episodes, but for now, I wanted to switch to the interview with Adam Abramowitz. We were able to catch up at LVO, and as really one of my favorite podcasters, I felt like I had to have him on the show. This show is called The Primary Objective for a reason. It focuses on how we can set goals for ourselves and how we achieve those goals when it comes to both competitive 40K and the hobby side alike. I really want to become a better painter in the long run, and I also want to be in the top 100 ITC players this next coming up season. And I really think that Adam's show, The Best General, really embodies those ideas, and to me, he was the perfect guest to bring on the show for the first episode. Hey guys, we're here with the interview I just promised. We've got Adam Abramowitz on the line. Adam, you want to say hi?
Hello.
Hey, Adam, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm about to have, as I told you, my third cup of coffee, and it's a
Yeah,
lovely rainy Thursday morning here in Louisiana.
I'm on my first cup of coffee, and it's not snowing this morning, which is nice, like it has been the last 3 days, but it is like 20 degrees outside, so it's nice and cold. I've got my heater running in the background. I don't think you can hear it, but if so, we should be all right. Um, yeah, it's a little early for me. I think I told you I don't work a normal schedule, so this is normally when I'm sleeping, but um, let's go ahead and get started. So, Adam, why don't you tell me? I know probably a lot of our listeners know a bit about you already, but just for those that don't, why don't you go ahead and tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I hate to assume that people know who I am. I think that's like the most
Right.
arrogant thing ever. Um, my name is Adam Abramowitz. I am the media director for a company you may know, and I hope that you love, called The Army Painter. Recently started working for them back in June, July. Fantastic company. I love it. I love my work. I'm very lucky. It allows me to go to tournaments and be an ambassador for the hobby and for gaming, which I love. And almost 2 years ago, I guess a year and a half, a little bit more, I started a podcast. Actually, yeah, definitely way more than 2 years ago. I started a podcast called The Best General Podcast. It's a mediocre gamer's quest to win a grand tournament. I was talking with Justin before the show. When I got started playing competitively, I was fairly known, at least in the Southeast, as a good painter. I won some painting awards, and I used to be on a podcast that a lot of people listen to, and I was constantly kind of berated and thrown under the bus for being, not a very good general. And I kind of got sick of it, and I decided, you know what, like I'm screw this. I want to win a GT, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to do that. And if you've listened to my show, you'll know this already. But if you don't, the show quickly evolved into how using the betterment of yourself as a tabletop nerd gamer to improve your life in so many regards, and documenting how learning and improving yourself can improve your life off the table with your family, with your wife, your business, and it, to some degree, it really has.
Yeah, and I mean that's kind of why I started this podcast as well. It's called The Primary Objective, but it's really about goals that we have and goals that we're trying to achieve, and how we get there. So, and that's why I wanted to invite you on as our first guest, because I really felt like your podcast, after listening to it for the last few years, I'll try not to sound like too much of a fangirl here, but it is my favorite 40K podcast.
Oh, thank you.
Simply because, yeah, and I think other people have mentioned this, but it's really just because everybody wants to talk about the new model that comes out, and everybody wants to talk about what the best list is, but none of those other podcasts really talk about how to be a better player. So that was a really big thing for me, because I think the same as you, and you wouldn't have heard this, but in the earlier bit that I recorded, I talked about how I started as a gamer in the Warhammer world when I was 10 years old, and so over 20 years ago, and I never won a game. I don't think I won a single game for 5 years. And and this was playing fantasy at the time. I had a high elf army. That was my first Warhammer army, and man, I could not play that game to save my life.
Weren't high elves?
But I loved it still.
Weren't high elves really good back in the day?
Yeah, so they were the best army you could play in the day. So trust me, it had nothing to do with the army I was playing. It had 100% to do with how bad I was at playing the game.
Get good, Justin. Get good.
I know. Yeah. And so I've played Warhammer, both fantasy and 40K for the last 15 years, but not competitively, I would say, until the last 5 years, really. And my first tournament, I brought Tyranids. And I got absolutely demolished. I didn't win a single game. I got tabled all 3 games, like by turn 3, I think. So I know how it is to not be a good player and then go to try to be something that somebody who wins a GT or a major. So
yeah,
really,
My journey was not quite as long. I mean, I literally started playing 40K about 5 years ago, maybe. Again, I never
Okay.
actually played, but I collected models. And
Gotcha.
within maybe 2 or 3 months, I went to my first GT, and
Oh, okay.
I very quickly fell in love with the immersion of, I'm somebody that likes to talk. And I love to, I mean, you saw me at LVO last week. I mean,
Yep.
you probably didn't see me not talking to somebody for very long.
Right.
And I love engaging with people. I love learning about other people and just making friends if I have the opportunity. And, to put me in a room with 30 or 50 or 60 or 800 other people that have one thing in common, that's just like, that's gold for me, because that means that there are all of these people that I'll get a chance to meet, and you never know what can come from that. Um, I tell this story all the time. I own a bicycle company, and I'm one of the founding members of this company. And I was on a flight, and my flight got delayed. It was around the holiday time, and I had like a 12-hour delay. I'm at LaGuardia Airport, and I end up sat up next to this guy who's got his computer open, and he's looking for bikes online, right? And I'm like, hey, I don't mean to be salesy or anything like this, but here's my card. I'm one of the founders of this business. If you're, in the market, why don't you give me a call sometime? And this guy has turned out to be one of my, greatest friends and colleagues. He's been an advisor to the business. He
Nice.
probably purchased 12 of our bikes. Um, you just never know what can happen when you put yourself out there to meet somebody. And I think 40K, or any tabletop game for that matter, just it forces you into that position to meet somebody and learn about them and make that connection, even if you're trying to beat each other's face off at the table.
Yeah. No. I I used to be a big video game player, and then when I got back into playing 40K, I just realized like how much more fun it is to actually be around people. The whole community side of it. Like people play Fortnite today or whatever it is, but like, do they really have a community of friends that they're hanging out with all the time? And it's just not the same.
I mean, they got
And
some shared dance moves that they can make viral videos
yeah,
about.
sure, yeah. I travel every month to bigger tournaments, and I just absolutely love it. I love meeting everybody. I see all these same people again, especially at LVO and some of the bigger events. I have somebody every couple minutes coming up into me and saying, "Hey, we played at this event or doing whatever, and how are you doing?" And it's really nice to do that. And it's part of why I wanted to start a podcast as well, because when I was younger, I was not a social person at all. I was pretty much as nerdy as it gets, didn't have any friends. And I think Warhammer lately, at least, has really changed that for me. So,
Well, I mean,
yeah, which is
you've
pretty nice.
always
Yeah.
you've always struck me as a pretty outgoing guy, and that's the again, that kind of is the testament to what I was just saying. Like, it kind of forces you to be social. And
Yeah.
what I love about 40K specifically, in the community that plays it, it's this really interesting crossroads of people. Um, unfortunately, there's not a lot of women that play, and there's not a lot of people of color, but that's
Yeah.
growing. That's changing. I love that. But you've got people that are, former military, active military. My buddy Paul Bowman is, a freaking jet pilot. You've got Kai played a
Yep. I
police
know Paul.
officer
So,
from Paul's great. Yeah. Had
yeah.
one of my best games with a police officer from Fresno, a nurse from Northern California. I played, people from all over the world, and they come from all walks of life, and they all have different experiences. And you've got this like window of time, 2 to 3 hours, and in between dice rolls and, magic spells and shooting attacks, you get to learn a little bit about somebody's story. And kind of as you said, like starting a podcast, it allows you to dig a little bit deeper, which has been really, really fun for me.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I wanted to go next with this was like, why did you just decide to start a podcast? What led to that?
I mean, partially out of spite. If you listen to the show, you've heard me talk about Kelly
Yep.
Wallace. He's, along with Stephen Cosgrove, is one of the founders of the general staff who put on Warzone Atlanta. That is my
Yep.
goal, to win Warzone Atlanta. I set my goal to do that. I love the event. Can't speak highly enough about these people. When I was down on my luck, a couple years back, they really went out of their way to take care of me. I didn't have an army to play. They sent me models. I needed to make money. They sent me models to paint, um, but Kelly, he's a lawyer. He's one of the most intelligent people I know, one of the funniest people I know. But he tells a story about how spite is one of the most powerful forces in the universe, and it's not always bad, right? But he went into law school, with a bunch of rich kids that knew that they were going to be a partner when they graduated, or say, I'm foobarring this story a little bit, but and it drove this desire to be better than them, in his heart. And he said, I am going to, am I allowed to swear on your show?
Oh yeah. That's totally fine.
Oh, sweet. So awesome. I swear a lot. I try not to on my show because kids listen, but Kelly was like, I am going to fuck up the curve for all of these people. I am going to be the one that aces every exam. I am going to be the one that makes these guys really work for it. So part of it was spite. Like part of it was like, I'm sick of being told that I'm not good enough. I want to do better. And in other aspects of my life, I had around that time lost my salary essentially. And, I wasn't making enough money. I was not in a good shape mentally. I started drinking too much, because it became hard to just be there for 5 hours at the end of the day when you're not working, living with your failures. You know what I mean? And for me, I'm my biggest critic. And if you haven't listened to the Best in Faction, we did a show recently talking about anxiety and things of that nature. There's this part of me when I get criticism from somebody and I'm told that I'm not good enough, that kind of doubles down because I'm already telling myself that. And that is my hugest motivating factor is that, Adam, you're not good enough. You're a piece of shit. Do better. And if you get in that mind space a little bit too much, bad things kind of pop up in your head and you really start to believe that you're not good enough. It's not just your inner voice telling you that, driving you to do better. Now you're really starting to believe that inner voice and the criticism around you. And I wanted to change that, just full stop. Like I used to be a confident guy. I used to be charismatic. I used to be outgoing. I used to be successful. Why can't I be all of those things again? And the podcast was kind of like an accountability measure to some degree. Like if I'm putting this out there to the world, right? Even if it's 100 people listening, right? These people are going to hold me accountable. They're going to make sure that I do better. And, to some degree that's really happened, of course I have my good friends that always, tell me when I'm acting up and need to do better. And I need that kind of honesty. But yeah, I mean, that was a huge driving factor for me. Part of it was spite. Part of it was accountability and, just having an urge to improve,
Yeah, and I go into that quite a bit in the earlier part that I recorded, so I'm not going to go into it now, and maybe you'll get a chance to listen to it about why I started a podcast and a lot of the same ideas about people in the local community, unfortunately, that were making fun of me all the time and doing a lot of things, and I got kicked from another club for being, trying to run tournaments there, and they're anti-ITC, and I started my own club and have gone from there to here now, so. So I definitely understand it, but
it's hard to be a 40K player.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but like it's really hard to. I mean, based on everything that we've said in the past 14 minutes of the show, but like it's really hard to be a 40K player without a home.
Yeah,
and that's for me. That was the general staff. That was Kelly reaching out to me saying, "I think you're good enough to play on an ATC team. Come play on mine." It's really hard. It's really hard. So, I mean, I totally get where you're coming from.
Yeah. And speaking about, why you started your podcast, I mean, your original goal at least was to win Warzone Atlanta or to win a GT or major event. From your first episode to starting your second season of the show, I mean, how do you think you've changed? Have you become a better player, do you think?
I mean, I definitely think I've become a better player. There's still, there's always going to be area for improvement, but something that's, change is I believe I can hang with the best of them. And a good day with a little bit of luck. I think I could have gone 6-0 at LVO. I really do. I had a little bit of bad luck. There's nothing you can do about that. It wasn't dice rolls. It was things that you can't really control. That said, I went to, it might have been an idiot move, and Kelly even said so. Like, I invited Nanavati to come to Warzone. I was like, I want this Warzone to be the best and have the best players possible. And we've had great players there. Ganyo's been in the past, and so I invited
correct me
Nick.
If I'm wrong,
go ahead.
Yeah, did you not lose to Nick Nanavati?
I did. And I lost. Yeah. I lost by a 4-inch. So the way the tournament shook out, for those of you that haven't heard, I set my goal to win Warzone, and the statistical odds of me of actually doing it were like 0.0013%. I had my good buddy Eric at Variance Hammer run those odds for me, and because I had finished like 60th place, 36 or something like that.
Okay,
and I won 2 games on the first day. I lost my third on the top table. I was playing Will Bundy, and it was a very tight game. It was a tough matchup for me. I had a little bit of luck kind of go the other way. It was a contentious game because it was so tight. And then I went and I steamrolled my opponent on Sunday morning, and it was kind of some vengeance because it was another Yanari list. And come to find out, I was playing, I was sitting in 3rd or 4th place, and I was playing Nick Nanavati with a chance to usurp the top table. Right. Unfortunately for both of us, but, fortunately for my good friend Red Powell, who was on the show, Red won, and he won crazily. He beat my pick to win the event was Stephen Mitchell. They were playing on top table. Okay. Red won outright. Nick and I played a game, and we were playing a legit mirror match. The only difference in our lists was he had 2 more Gene Stealers in it and something else. Nick went first, was hyper aggressive. I took advantage of that, and it literally came down to my Hormigaunt screen, me remembering that they 6-inch consolidate and going, oh shit, I can get these guys 6 inches over there, and leaving a very small gap for his Gene Stealers to get through and swarm me to move them again. Had I not done that, I don't think Nick wins that game, and I think Nick would probably tell you the same thing. But Nick is a world-class player. So I came really close. I think I ended up finishing like 10th or 8th overall. 4th place in terms of brackets. I was really, really, really happy with that because, I invited Nick because I said, if I'm going to do this, I want to do it. And I want to beat the best player that I can. Whether that's Red, whether it's Stephen Mitchell, whether it's Will Bundy or anybody else that was at that tournament. But going up and being in a position to play Nick Nanavati at the, the final table on Sunday, that to me, that shows marked growth. That was a huge confidence boost. Another big confidence boost, I won the Louisiana State Championships, and I went 5-1 at ATC, only losing to Alan Pajama Pants, So I'm getting closer. I won 3 RTTs in the past couple months. It's getting there. It's all starting to click. And I say it on my show all the time. A lot of that's because I made a conscious decision, and I started to listen to people. And another big part of that is just I found an army that really suited me, was playing Tyranids at the time. But from a gaming perspective, Justin, yes, I think I'm a much better player.
Yeah, and it's the same for me. If you would have looked, like I said, you look at me 5 years ago, and I couldn't win a single game to save my life, and then last year I'm top table at 3 different majors, and you might say, well, you finished 7th and 8th and 6th at all those majors. Well, in my mind, I really finished 2nd because I was the top table, and unfortunately I lost by a few points each time.
Dude,
and those few points dropped me down. Yeah,
it takes so much luck to get to that top table. Not just
when there's hundreds of players. Yeah,
you have to be a good player, number one, but you got to have luck, man. At LVO, I went up against the 6th place player from last year, a guy who made it to the top 8 round 2. Like, that's not lucky. that's not dodging the bullets. That's not scoring 13 points for 6 rounds. You know, that's playing for every battle point and getting paired up against a really good player. I mean, some people win these tournaments and they play nothing but, you know, relatively new gamers that have also had good luck, you know? So win path is a big deal.
At LVO, my third round, I'd won my first 2 games pretty handily. My third round, I go up against the best Tau player in the world. And I didn't get first turn. And there was no line of sight blocking in the middle. And, well, guess I lost.
You can't do it. I mean, that was the game with Mark round 2 is, you know, he had a knight and we both had basilisks and he went first. I had to go first because otherwise Swarmlord was dead. Swarmlord died turn 1 and I had one play at the end of the game to try and maybe play for a tie and it just didn't pan out. And then, you know, I went up final round against 3 Avaras and drone spam and it was the first magic box that I played and he went first. And he climbed up on top of the magic box, which meant I can't abuse that. But, you know, sometimes just being a better player, being able to play the rest of the terrain on the board, being smart with your charges, your consolidates, your pile-ins. So that was actually a pretty handy win for me. But it's to be on the top table with 3 different GTs. I can't say that I've been there because I've never once. You know, so
it is disappointing when you lose. I'll let you know now. It does suck, and like I lost on stream on 2 of those, and I lost pretty handily. And oh man, it felt bad. But it is what it is, and you know we're all getting better. So
did you learn?
I did
something?
want to talk a little.
Oh no, I'm interviewing you now. Did you learn something? Like
I learned that since this is gonna sound really bad. All 3 of those games I lost to Dark Eldar. I learned that AdMech doesn't do well against Dark Eldar. And I actually kind of have figured out ways to get around playing Dark Eldar and things like that. And I played Dark Eldar at LVO and I beat them pretty handily. So I was pretty happy about that.
So there you go. You're already, I mean, like if you walk away from a loss just down about the loss, and then you lost, right?
Yeah.
But you can go into a game, not win the game and improve from it. And I think that you definitely, especially hard games, hard wins and losses, when you've played well, but just, you know, it was a bad matchup, you learn more in those games if you're willing to, and you will improve from them more than just winning games.
Well, and, you know, I was, for most of those games, I was kind of playing a variation on the meta list, I will admit. So I had my Knight Castellan, I had some Blood Angels, and then I had my AdMech, and I brought like drills and Electro Priests and stuff. And at the time, I was really the only person playing the drills and the Electro Priests. So I think a lot of people just hadn't faced it before, and were caught off guard in most games to my advantage. And that's kind of what helped me get up there. But then you go against these super good players that are playing at the time the best army, which was Dark Eldar, and they stop all your stratagems and they get all their command points back, and it went downhill, unfortunately. But speaking of what we're playing, do you have an idea of what you're gonna play in the 2019 season yet?
Yeah, I'm on the bandwagon now for Colts. Okay. So those of you that listen to the show, I love to play flyers. I love to play deep strike armies. I used to play a lot of drop pods. I'm a big Blood Angels player. And I since 8th edition was released, I really wasn't able to play Blood Angels the way that I've wanted to, and the facts kept coming.
Yep.
And then Nick,
they did.
And then Nanavati was like, well, I mean, if you like the movement phase so much, and if you think that that's the best aspect of your play, you should really take a look at Kraken Gene Stealers, Kraken Tyranids. And I played that to a lot of success. I mean, I lost 2 games at Warzone, and I lost 2 games at an RTT recently with it, and then 2 games at LVO. I've lost 6 games with that list since I started playing. I've had a lot of success with it. I'm due for a change. I need to mix it up. And the thing that I love about Colts, I introduced Colts into my list for LVO just because I really love the Aberrant models, and I needed better long-range firepower than the Hive Guard. Because the Hive Guard, if they move, they're not as good. and it's only 12 shots a game. I can potentially get 12 shots from 2 basilisks. They've got longer range. I don't need to rely on putting onslaught on them. You know what I mean? So it's just more reliable long range firepower. So they did, in my opinion, Hiveguard better than Hiveguard did Hiveguard. And then I had One Eye in the list originally, and then I put Aberrants in. And Aberrants I could be a little bit more bullyish with. My problem with One Eye is that I want to play too aggressively, and I couldn't play the cage match with him. So the Aberrants forced me to do that because I'm not sending One Eye up round 1 or round 2. They come in when I need them to, and they fight what they have to, and they stick there.
Yep.
So I had some success with that, and that kind of led me down the path of Colts. And I saw the models, and I love a good model. I love fun rules. This, to me, is the most Blood Angels style list possible because, you might not be deep striking, you might not be potting in, you're coming up from underground. But it's the null deploy list that I was playing at the end of 7th edition, essentially.
Right.
It gives me an opportunity to play flyers. So, I'm gonna put some vultures in my list. Can't wait to paint it up.
Vultures.
They're easily one of my favorite models. Excuse me, Games Workshop or Forge World has ever made. So I finally get to sling some paint on them. And then the bikes. I own a bike company, so anything with 2 wheels excites me. So I'm going to try and make them work.
Yeah, those bikes are very Infinity-esque models to me, which they look great, by the way. I love the bikes. All the new Gene Stealer Colt models are awesome, and I really wish that I still had my Tyranid army from way back when, because I would totally play Gene Stealer Colts. I think right now it's definitely too big of an investment for me at the moment, so I'm going to stick to AdMech. I think I've found some combos that really work well. I try to stay away from the meta a little bit in this show too, but the drills right now with Styges and the new Tech Priest Manipulus, oh man, it makes those things good. The extra range on the Flamers and all that is great. So I've been playing that in a lot of my lists.
I think AdMech can be a total spoiler army for a lot of people, because people don't expect it. They, like you said earlier, they don't know what exactly is coming, when they're playing it. I think we timed out a little bit.
There you are.
Okay, there we are.
Yeah, sorry. Oh, you're fine. Yeah.
I'll start over. I think AdMech is kind of a spoiler army because people don't expect it. It's a little bit counter meta, and they don't know exactly what it does. And throwing that element of confusion out there for your opponent when they're used to playing Ynnari, when they're used to playing Guard and Castellans, when they're used to playing Plague Bearers and Thousand Sun Psychers, it can really throw them for a loop. It's an army, when the drills were released, a good buddy of mine, Thomas Bird, who's a fantastic player. He was a Warcon player who had great success. One of the best players in the Southeast, hands down, a true Renaissance man. I love seeing what he does with it. He's had some success with it. It's a list I've always wanted to try. I just, I don't have all the money in the world.
Yeah, I feel you. So, yeah, if you watched the game last night that I played against Gene Stealer Colts, my list is very small because I bring Guillemon and some other things. And with the Manipulus, that gives me +5 to charge on my fist spots. Plus, I can Styges them forward, move 9 inches with the extra range. In the game last night, I think I moved 45 inches with the unit of 6 fist spots turn 1 and touched his Hive Guard and everybody back there and just destroyed his back line.
People forget that they have power fists.
3 damage, and 20 attacks. So he didn't end up winning that game 30-23, and that's just because you've probably seen this and hear people talk about it, but he brings multiple brood lords with that psychic power that's like, oh, I'm leadership 13 and I just auto kill you.
I think that's gonna they're gonna change that somehow. I think it's
so he casts the horror or whatever it is, so I'm -1 leadership and he's leadership 13 and it's like, oh, you're leadership 8 or 7, so you auto die now, and there went Guillemon and there went a drill and there went this.
I am not a playtester, so I have no confirmation on this, but just based on how they've curbed rules in the future, I have a feeling that that's going to be changed to read unmodified leadership, Because if you can walk up to a 620 point unit like a Knight Castellan and just say,
An auto killer, yeah.
I rolled a 7, you don't have a deny, you're off the table. I mean, I love that because the Castellan's such a big bully right now. And being able to throw that out there, changes that list for those players a little bit. But, it's also really tough to pull off that combo because you got to be within 3-inch range with a Loki for the -1. You can only get your leadership up so much. But what I don't want to see happen is I don't want to see them cap it. I don't want them to say like this is up to or whatever. I would like to see, because right now it's Gene Stealer Colt's really only defense against flyers. If an Eldar flyer comes at you in your backfield, that's how you're going to take it out of the sky.
Right, and I think the power is really cool. I'm glad that he's done it to me in 3 games now. So you think I'd know better by this point, but he puts all of them in deep strike, right? The Colt ambush, and then the whole little combo pops up together and picks something he doesn't like, and bye bye. But
for those of you that don't know, the power is called Mental Onslaught. Thank you. Pay attention to that.
Yeah, you don't want to be within 18 inches of it. We'll just put it that way. So, anyways, we'll move on from our little meta talk here. But I wanted to talk about your podcast and kind of what your future plans are going forward. How's season 2 coming along?
Well, season 2's coming along. I've finished my first interview. A lot of people have been asking, where's it coming? You said after LVO. Well, we're still after LVO. I'm waiting on a good friend of mine, Preach Jacobs. He, allowed me to use his track from last season. A lot of people loved it. So I went to him. I said, okay, what's it going to take for you to make a custom track for me? So he's been in the studio making a custom soundtrack for the season. It cost me a pair of Jordans. That was it. So I'm excited to get the season started off with a new custom track. So I'm waiting on that. The season's going to be a little bit different. If you just continue to listen to me talk about me trying to win a GT, it's going to get a little stale. We did 16 months of that already. And right now for me, being able to do an episode a week is just way too much.
Okay.
Unfortunately. So what I'd rather do is, instead of scrounging just to put an episode out, I want to really plan this season out. I listened to a podcast called Surviving Y2K, right? And it's a great podcast. It digs into, this guy had a podcast called Finding Richard, I think it was, or something like that, where he went on this mission to find Richard Simmons because he was lost, and really, really great episode. Yeah. Oh no, it is a fantastic episode, or a fantastic podcast. And then Surviving Y2K is just as great because it delves into these people at this period of time, experiencing what was to some people the end of the world, to some people no big deal, to some people it was this, that, and the other thing. And all of these people and their different experiences, these apocalypse preppers, these people that went to, Israel, these people that it's a great episode. But I really enjoyed how he structured it, where he interwove these stories about, other people about the same topic. And, you weren't just hearing from Adam Abramowitz is on, the primary objective in this episode. You're hearing from 5 different people on the same story, and then the narrator has his own story that he kind of unveiled. And I've reached out to the community and I've asked for people to submit applications. I've actually made those choices. We've got some really, and I'm sorry to anybody that didn't get selected. There are some stories that are so similar. I can't tell the same story twice, but really I want to dive in to find out how 40K has helped other people, and what's happened in other people's lives that has affected their 40K, their play, and how they've used 40K to improve their lives. Because I'm not the only one. And I've gotten a lot of feedback, from people that say, I had a guy tell me at LVO, dude, you released that episode where you talked about X, Y, and Z, and it was released at the right time. I was in a bad spot, and I needed to hear that I wasn't the only one going through this. And I want to be able to provide more insight to that and prove that, yes, while we're these quote-unquote B-list 40K celebrities that you see at tournaments and everything.
Yeah.
We're real people with real problems too. And, it's not just the caricature that you kind of perceive on Facebook. But I'm excited for season 2. It's definitely going to be different, and I'm happy that it's going to be different for myself. I'm happy that it's going to be different for my listeners. I think it's going to be a great season. I really do. But my goal, I still want to win Warzone. I mean, that's still the goal. That's still what I'm trying to do.
What is your next event coming up? Do you have one planned yet? Are you going to Adepticon by chance?
I'm not. So I have so much since I've taken. That's part of the reason why I can't do an episode a week is because of my new position at the Army Painter. Yeah. I'm traveling a lot for them, which allowed me to go to LVO, which was fantastic, and I thank them so much. I have to go to the Gamma convention next month, which is a little bit too close to Adepticon this year, and then I'm going to another event. I have to go to Salute in London, and I really don't know. I think the next GT that I play in might be in June, and it'll be the Gulf Coast Wargaming Alliance GT. I'm down in Louisiana, like I'm in New Orleans. Like there's nothing is close
Not
by.
A lot.
No, Warzone and
Sorry, I was going to say it may sound odd because we're here in Denver, Colorado, but there are no big events in Colorado. There are no majors, and the only GTs that have ever happened in Colorado, aside from Feast of Blades, 6 years ago, are the 4 that I've ran in the last 2 years. Right. So, which means I don't get to play in them. But I'll be at Adepticon, so.
That's awesome. I won't be at Adepticon. I will be at Gulf Coast Wargaming Alliance. I will be at ATC because it's my favorite tournament in the world. I mean, I love Warzone, but I love the team environment. I mean, this is, I guess, the first time I'm going to say it out loud. Stephen Four, otherwise known as Juice, kind of subtly announced it on the most recent episode of The Long War. But I've always wanted to be on Team America. I've always wanted to play ETC. I love Olympic sports. I'm a cyclist. I was a track athlete. And to me, this is the Olympics of 40K. And I put in my bid to be selected this year, my application. And, knowingly that I'm not quite there yet as a player, but Stephen and Sean Naden asked if I would be the coach of the team this year, and I've accepted. I still got to work out some final details, so I'm like 99% sure. And some people may say, "Oh, well, you're the coach, you don't get to play." I think this is a great opportunity to really help the team. I mean, Warner Bourne did such a great job with the team last year. I'd really like to build on that. And I had an episode with my dad, who was my coach, all throughout my childhood, one of my best friends, who knows me better as a competitor than anybody on the planet. And he's always told me that he felt that I would be a better coach than a player one day. And I actually take that as a compliment. And I'm really looking forward to contributing and helping Team USA do the best that they can this year. So that's August. Go ahead.
August, yeah. I was just going to say that's pretty amazing, man. So, for someone who's only been playing the game for 5 years and, really only doing some competitive stuff for the last few years, I mean, to go to the coach of the ETC America team is really amazing. So congratulations.
Thank you very much. I mean, it is an honor. It's to be able to represent your country at anything. It's pretty cool. So I will be doing that. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it to Nova this year because it's so close. And I love Nova. I love Mike Brandt. I love the event that they put on. It's fantastic. Just with all the travel that I have coming up, it makes it difficult. I have two more events for the Louisiana State Championships. I think I'm out of the running to win this year unless I win the next 2. But I will certainly try to defend my title. Yeah. Beyond that, we don't really have a big GT here in the South, the deep Southeast. We've got the Dallas Open over in Dallas. We've got Wars in Atlanta. The Brohammer guys have one in Florida, but I've always wanted to run a GT here in New Orleans. And after Reese Robbins from Frontline Gaming, ITC, LVO, everybody knows who he is. After we were both bumped out, he actually lost to Stephen Four. And I lost to a fantastic opponent, Matt Shuckman. He's a great fucking guy.
Yep, I know him.
We found ourselves up at the Hobby Lounge having some beers, and Reese and I were like, he's like, "You're from Atlanta, right?" And I'm like, "No, I'm actually from New Orleans." And he's like, "What?" In his raspy voice, "I love New Orleans. I've always wanted to do a GT there. We should do a GT. I'll do anything to make it happen." I'm like, "Well, let's do it. Let's talk." So I've been running around with the idea of what this would be. I want it to be a very different style tournament. I'm a big fan of what the SM Battle Reports guys do in Gibraltar.
Way out there. Yeah, Gibraltar.
Yeah, way out there. So, we're toying around with the idea of doing very hobby focused. And I'm a big fan of, to me, yes, I want to win best general at an event, but to me, overall is the true champion at any event. To be able to score enough battle points, enough sportsmanship scores and paint votes. I mean, that's the real winner.
Yep.
And you look at the guys that win these events, win those titles, Thomas Bird, Andrew Whitaker, Sean Naden, Mike Twitchell. They really are. Those guys are the ambassadors for this hobby that should be propelling it forward. And
absolutely.
But
so don't look at my army.
I don't paint shame ever.
Yeah.
And I'd love your feedback on this. I mean, this is kind of what I'm toying around with, and I need to call Reese, so I don't want to give away too much and say that this is how it's going. Part of what I talk about with my buddies is that 40K streaming is great, and we need it to grow the sport. But it's not that viewable of a format, especially if you're new to the tabletop gaming. So trying to create a format that is more viewable, it's easier to understand as an outsider, and also just a little bit different. So what I've come up with is the idea that we have it's a pro-am style tournament. So if you combine any other GT, and you combine like the Nova Invitational, which I think is great for the hobby. So we have 32 players, right? And these 32 players are going to be the quote unquote pros. And this is going to be, ideally like the top 15 or 20 players in the ITC that can make it. It's going to be the TOs at all these events that don't get to play in their own events. So, you want Reese there, you want Frankie there, Phil Rododonkus, Kelly Wallace, Mike Brandt. You want those guys in this as well. And then you want like some 40K celebrities, like a Kenny Boucher or Glacial Geek Phil. You want these guys to be in there too, because they're still good players, right? And we're going to put them into.
They've been doing it for a while, that's for sure.
They've been doing it for a while, and we're gonna put them in 8 brackets, right? And they're going to be 1 through 4 in those brackets. We're going to seed them in those brackets. So Sean Naden, and the top bracket will probably be, a hobby bracket. So if your paint scores are good enough, you're going to be in bracket 1. So Sean Naden would most likely be at the top of that list because he's a good painter, he's a good sportsman, he's got those scores to be there. And then Kenny Boucher or a Phil, Glacial Geek Phil, will probably be number 3 or 4 in that bracket because they're good painters, they're hobbyists. You know what I mean? Fill in the rest. That's Saturday. I'm getting excited about this, right? So I apologize for commandeering your show.
So go ahead, man. Yeah.
On Friday, there is a 3-round RTT playoff. Okay, so whether it's 32 people, whether it's 64 people, whether it's 120 people, the top 32 players straight battle points from Friday will fill in the bottom 32, your 5 through 8 in the 8 brackets. So now we've got a 64-person 4-round battle point bracket system, March Madness style. There's no elimination, but you're playing for battle points. And the top player of every one of those brackets from those 4 rounds on Saturday will play in the finals on Sunday. That's the goal. So we're whittling it down. There's a playoff to get in. You have the brackets where everybody's playing it out to fend off their brackets, and then an 8-round RTT on Sunday, or an 8-player RTT on Sunday.
Right. Well, that is quite a different format. So it's the one thing that I highly recommend against in a format like this, and I'm just going to be honest with you. Yeah. I think a lot of people. When you look at like the Nova Invitational or something like that, and I realize that you played in this as well, a lot of people look from the outside look like, for example, I was a top 32 player during the Nova Invitational. Like I was top 32 in the ITC, but nobody cared to invite me. So just make sure you look at all those other players that you may not know by name and see who you can get in there, because a lot of people work really hard to get up to that spot, Yeah,
I mean that's kind of the point. I mean we want to invite as many of the best players in the country that we can, but I also want to make sure that we get the TOs in there and we get some of these ambassadors for the hobby that should be there, you know?
People that, you get a little bit of name recognition in there. I understand.
Right. But I mean, if you want to come, you always have to. I don't think it's that far of a stretch if you're a good enough player to come play in the RTT on Friday, to make the top 32. So I still think it's a little bit accessible, but we'll see. The other goal of this, and this will be my final note on it. Obviously it's New Orleans. It's a big party. You want to have that party, that fun atmosphere. I have a lot of respect for Kelly Wallace and his mission design and what he puts into it. I have a lot of respect for Mike Brandt. I have a lot of respect for Reese Robbins. I would love to get those three in a room designing missions for this event and just see what we come up with. My goal is not to copy any other tournament. I want this to be its own thing. I want it to be New Orleans because New Orleans is so different. I just want it to be its own style event. And, being able to say, look, if you're a good enough hobbyist and a good enough ambassador for this game and this sport that we want to consider you, maybe that'll drive people to do better with their painting and do better with their sportsmanship scores and do better with just being out there in the community. But I also think it's just cool to know, like, I could fight my way. Me, Adam Abramowitz, could go in on Friday, try and make the top 32 to get into a bracket with Sean Naden, Kenny Boucher, Brandon Grant, Phil Rhododonkus, these people that you hear about on the internet. You're going to be in that bracket, and chances are you're going to be playing one of those idiots. You know what I mean? And when I say idiots, I mean that in the nicest way possible. Because
really good players, yeah. And that's something I like. When you get that set up, please let me know what the details are and when it's going to be, because I'm trying to go to as many big events as I can this year. That's part of my primary objective, the part of the show. I'll be at Adepticon. I'll be at the London Grand Tournament. I'll be at SoCal Open. I won't be at Nova, unfortunately, but I'll be at LVO and all these other Warzone Houston and Bug Eater and Flying Monkey. I'm going to all of them this year. So, all right, guys, sorry we had a few technical issues there, but I was saying how I'm going to all these different tournaments, and part of my primary objective, the point of this show is, to get to as many tournaments as I can. So
that's
hopefully I'll see you at a few of them, Adam.
Is that your primary objective?
It kind of is, and I think a bigger one is actually to become a better painter, as odd as that sounds, and that's why I'm doing a weekly painting stream, and I did my first one last week where we painted the new Tech Priest Manipulus. So, but we'll see. I just want to get out there as much as I can. I want to be in the top 100 players this year. Unfortunately, because of my bad showing at LVO, I think I ended 153rd, which I wasn't really happy about, but we're going to do better this season, Adam.
I believe in you. Man. Yeah. The interesting thing was I finished 176th at LVO.
Oh, okay.
And then I ended up finishing out the 2018 season in 176th place. I don't know what the statistical odds of that happening are, but
probably low. So I guess I did it slightly better than you, but yeah, I really want to be in the top 100. Like I said, I'm going to go to as many events as I can. Adepticon's one I've never been to before, so that's a big deal to me to actually finally be able to go and compete in the championships. So
yeah, man, Adepticon's a great event. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Anyways, we've been recording for a while now. This is a lot longer than I originally planned to do this interview, so I do want to wrap it up. Let me know when this this New Orleans tournament is happening. I will definitely try to attend because it sounds like a lot of fun. Any last things you want to put out there?
Just sorry for rambling. I tend to do that.
No, it's totally okay. Hopefully you'll be able to listen to this episode tomorrow, Adam, and then we will talk to you again soon. Thanks for coming on, man.
No, thank you. I really appreciate it. Good luck with the show.
Adam really had some great points there. Towards the end of our interview, he was talking about not letting games that you lose get you down. Because if you lose that game, then and you let it affect how your mood is for the rest of the event or maybe the rest of the weekend, then that's a bad game. But if you lose that game and you learn something, if you learn what you might have made a mistake on, what you can do differently next time, maybe you'll bring a different unit and how you're going to do better at the next event or even maybe the next game coming up in 10 minutes, then you really haven't lost that game. I decided to go ahead and bring a couple of my team members on so we can talk about how we did overall at LVO and what goals we have going forward, how we think we can do as a team moving on into the 2019 season. All right, guys, I have a couple of my Colorado Cutthroat team members here with me. I've got Corey Nalemo.
How's it going?
And I've got Randall Nelson.
Hey, how are you?
Oh, doing fine. How are you guys?
Doing well.
Another beautiful night in America.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thanks to both of you for coming on the podcast. I know none of us have done this before, so I'm sure once it hits the internet tomorrow, I'll get 100 messages about how much I suck as a podcaster, how much my teammates suck.
Oh, we're just awful.
We should probably give up now. But
you've been warned.
Yeah, right. It's going to happen. Just wait till tomorrow. So we just had our interview with Adam Abramowitz, and I know you guys haven't listened to that yet, but I think it went pretty well. He revealed some pretty exciting stuff about being the coach for the ETC America team this coming year, which is awesome.
Nice.
And
that was really good.
Yeah, I think he'll do a pretty good job at that. So
he's super insightful. Every time I listen to his podcast, which I highly recommend, he just goes into some detail about things that most people just don't think about in a competitive environment, you know?
Yeah, and I mentioned that to him as well. Part of the reason a lot of people listen, at least why I listen to it, is it's not just about what the best list is right now or what the best model and how you're going to win. It's kind of a lot about how to be a better person and a better player in general.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Now, speaking of that, what do you guys think the best list is right now? Just kidding.
The FAQ has not even hit yet.
Oh. Yeah. Did you guys see the Gene Stealer Cult FAQ that's not technically out yet that I might have secret info on?
I've seen a couple little spoilers here and there, but
Yeah.
I honestly haven't taken a real gander at it because the Gene Stealer Colts, I'm still learning like the names to the models, so it's hard
I know, right?
Just picture what they do.
There's 100 characters, and every time at least the 3 different times that I've played against them so far, they have like 18 HQs, and they all have Warlord traits, and they all do different things. And
all their names sound the same.
Yeah, I can't keep up with it. But they did mention that the Four-Armed Emperor, a plan made, I forget exactly what it's called, but is not going up to 4 CP like we all predicted. And in order to make it different, they're just going to make it once per game.
Oh, the Vect, the GSE Vect.
GSE Vect, yeah. It's just going to be 1 use per battle. So that's certainly interesting. It is only 3 CP still, but you can roll a 1 when you use that stratagem, and it does nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. I heard there was a dice roll for it, and I was like, that. I mean, GSE has enough tools. I don't think they absolutely need a reusable Vect, so...
No, and I just like I talked with Adam, and he thought that this would be changed in the FAQ, and as far as I've seen, it has not. But I think the most powerful thing right now is actually the Mental Onslaught Psychic power. And if you get that combo off, which is actually pretty easy to do as long as you deep strike everybody together, when you've got a leadership 13 Patriarch and you're -1 or maybe even -2 leadership at whatever he's targeting, it just auto dies. You can kill a Knight Castellan. You can kill Guillemon like he did in my game. Just auto, nothing we can do about it. So I think that's probably their most powerful option at the moment.
I gotta put in a second place vote and or a contender, and I think that the little buggies, what are they? 4-wheelers? Those guys on 4-wheelers, the 4-pack.
Oh yeah, the Atlan Jackals.
Yeah, the Jackals. So they have there's a 3 stratagem combo with it, and it goes like you deep strike them, they pop up 3 inches away. If you can get the leader dude near them, it's a +1 to hit. There's a stratagem to throw their demolition packs, so 4d6 demolition packs at strength 8. There's a psychic power. Nope, actually I lied. It's a stratagem for the Jackals themselves. +1 to hit, +1 to wound. So they're hitting on 2, strength 8, -3, d3 damage. And it's like a 3 CP bomb for a 60-point unit, and it can pretty much wipe anything but a knight off the table.
Can they move again after they do that?
There's a third stratagem. That's where the 3-fer comes from, and that allows them to make a move like it was in the movement phase. So
so it's a hit and run.
Oh yeah, hit and run hardcore, like with 4 demo packs. That's insane.
Well, and if you can make a big unit of 10 or even more of those guys and give the rest of them shotguns or something.
I think, they come stock with shotguns. It's shotguns and demo packs, and they come at 4 or 8, and I think Adam was the one that discovered that. So
Yeah, I mean, there's so many combos in that book. I'm quite jealous of it because I look at my AdMech book and I cry in the corner for a little while, and then
As you should.
then I look at my wallet and say, well, I guess I won't be playing Genestealer Colt.
It's always all right, what can I sell to fund this army?
Right. I even considered selling all my knights.
Oh.
Yeah. I got like 10 of those things.
I mean, you know
That'd be a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, I know. Because they're all painted and...
Don't do it.
Yeah, I know.
you have nice looking knights. That's all I say.
I don't think they're nice looking, but they're complete. How about that? And they match.
It's better than my
Well,
stuff.
that's better than anything I've got.
So, guys, I did want to talk, since it was just 2 weekends ago now at this point, I think, if my memory serves correctly, the Las Vegas Open. Randall, how did you do at the Las Vegas Open?
Man, I probably drank about 60 Busch Lights while snowmobiling near Canada. I did great. I mean, just phenomenal.
Oh, that's right. You didn't go. You let down the team, Randall.
Next year I'm on it.
All right, fine. Corey, you were there.
I was. It was my first time at LVO, so it was a pretty fun experience for me.
How did you do?
I did pretty well. I hit my baseline goal. I went 4-2 with Necrons, since nobody knows who I am. I went 4-2, so I took a pretty basic Sawtech list with Air Wing Detachment, 3 Doom Sights, a basic Overlord, a basic Chronometron Cryptek, 3 Immortals, 2 of which were Tesla, 1 of which was Gauze. They were 5-man packs. Then it was kind of your basic 2 5-man units of Destroyers. I did 1 9-man unit of Tesla Tomb Blades, fully loaded, and then 2 Doomsday Arcs.
So, yeah, I mean, 4-2 with Necrons, I think, is really good, especially where they're at right now and the kind of opponents that you're going against. You know, these are not easy people to play against. This is as about a high of a competitive level as there is, as far as I can tell. Mm-hmm. And you did better than me, so that's that's really important.
I have one question though for you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Yeah.
I remember speaking with you before you left for the LVO when we were deciding if you wanted to take those 3 flyers or not. Now, despite what happened with them, who was the other Necron player that was talking trash to you in the Necron chat before you went? Was it the guy that beat you?
No, in the Necron group I chat in, we have Red Powell, Dino Cedeno, Alexander Gonzalez, Jessica Bowman. I mean, they're all really solid players. Everybody's kicked ass in their own groups. So everybody talks shit to me because I'm the newbie out of everybody.
Go ahead.
So I think it was Chad Powell's always talking shit. So it's pretty likely it was him. Or not Chad Powell, Chad Layton. He's always talking shit, but he didn't end up going to LVO. But he's been doing really good with the Stroptic. And then it might have been Red Powell who was talking shit, and he was the one Necron player that beat me in the global rankings. So.
Did he go 5-1?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He went 3-1-1.
Oh, okay. There was a 5-1 player.
Yeah,
though,
there
right?
was.
There was a 5-1 player. He got 20th place.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, he was I think he was in like the 20-ish range before LVO score points hit in, so it didn't kick him up enough to really end him in a super great spot.
Gotcha.
He had a pretty basic list, and
I looked at it. It was something I would have built, and I was actually kind of surprised at it. So
I think I don't know the guy, I didn't see any of his games, so I can't really speak to his level. But the one thing that was kind of noticed is he had some pretty ideal matchups, which I did too. So I can't really, complain. I had some really great matchups, but I also had some really bad ones.
Well, I had a lot of bad ones.
I remember many a times I walked by and your face was just like, damn.
Yeah. One of those was Necrons. I lost horribly. And you know what? It wasn't even so much that I lost that game. It was my opponent's behavior to him winning or to him beating me. So he probably had there's a lot of people. He probably had like 10 or 15 different people stop by the table during the game that were friends with him. And this was his exact reaction to each of those. And they're like, hey, it looks like your game's going pretty good. He's like, oh my God, I am beating this guy so bad. I can't believe how good this game is going for me. He's never going to win. That was pretty much his reaction to like all of his friends coming by. And I'm just sitting over there crying. And it like, I don't even know what happened in that game, to be honest with you. Like, I just...
Well, Justin, you know, you might as well start from the top and give us your LVO breakdown. It kind of seems like a proper opportunity.
So, I got there with a smile on my face. I left with a big frown. I went 3-3, which is average, I guess, but not nearly as well as I'd hoped to do. My goal going into the Las Vegas Open was actually to come home with 2 trophies. One of those being the best Dark Mechanicus player for the year, which even before like Thursday night, I was the best Dark Mechanicus player in the rankings. But apparently, overnight, the ITC Ferry decided to add a league score to good old Derek Page's score for Dark Mechanicus, and he went like half a point ahead of me. And I was so upset. Like, Derek's a really cool guy, so I can't be mad at him. But I was definitely upset because I had chose not to bring Dark Mechanicus because I didn't feel like I needed to. So going into LVO, I think I was 5th in AdMech. So I was pretty high up there. And I'm thinking, I've got a really good list. I've practiced with it like 20 games. I've won most of those games. I'm going to do really well at LVO. My first game in, I go against Gene Stealer Colt. And I'm like talking like the meta Gene Stealer Colt list. And this is a good player. And I'm like freaking out already because if I don't win my first game, there's no way I can get the best AdMech player trophy. I have to win it. So it was a really tough match. I ended up winning by 2 points. So I was feeling really good then. My second game, I go up against Yanari, like a really good Yanari list. And I'm like, fuck me.
Yeah, Yanari had the number at that
it was a straight up meta Yanari list, like no questions about it. And
double or single?
It had double spear, 10 Dark Reapers. Yeah.
So actually the bottom meta list for him, because that's not what's considered top for Yanari. At least not
either way, it was tough. So. But he completely underestimated the deep striking fist Castellans, the fist bots, and I think I tied up like half his army turn 2, killed it turn 3, and then ended up tabling him on turn 4 or something like that. So that game, I got a lot of points. I think it was like 38-13 or something like that.
I think when I played you, Justin, the only reason I think I won by like 1 point. And the only reason was because I ran from those punchy robots as hard as I could.
You actually lost by 1 point.
Did I? Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, that sounds right.
Yeah. So going into game 3, I'm feeling really good now, right? I've won both my games. Unfortunately, I looked at the scores, and every other AdMech player had also won both their games. So I'm like, well, fuck me, I got to win my third one now. Because I was expecting them. Pretty much most of them brought call stars with guard. And I'm like, well, that's not going to win. People are going to tie that stuff up, you know. I was wrong. So I go into my third game, and I'm playing Necrons. And I'm like, sweet. You know, I'm winning this game for sure. Nope.
Well played.
So I get my ass handed to me by this Necron player who boasts about it the whole game, and I'm like crying in the corner. So day 2 comes around, and I've got to play my 4th game, and I'm thinking, well, all the other AdMech players are now 3-0, like literally every one of them. And I'm like, they have to now lose basically all of their games, and I need to win these next 3 for me to get best AdMech player. So there was still a chance, you know. Yeah. Good old Mitt Romney. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So game 4, I think I go against Dark Eldar with like the grotesques and all that kind of stuff. And to be honest, I don't think he was a very good player. He was definitely more on the fluffy side, and I won that game pretty easily. So now I've won my game. I'm 3-1, and I'm still feeling okay. I look at the scores again. Every one of the AdMech players is 4-0. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You know, like, what are they doing? Holy cow. So I go into game 5, and I'm playing basically the kind of meta Catachin Brigade with the Knight Castellan, and that's it. And
Yeah.
I actually win that game. And he had some bad rolls. My Castellan killed his Castellan turn 1. It just didn't go well for him. I tied up a lot of his units. He wasn't able to kill anything, and I kind of just mopped up from there. And I didn't table him, but I was close to on turn 6, so I ended up winning that game.
Justin, so you're telling me that going first wins.
It does,
games.
And there's a pattern here to how I lost. So Necron player went first, and I lost. Game 5, I go up against the best Tau player in the world currently.
Who's that?
Man, what was his name? I don't remember it right off the hand.
Was it the one that made it to the top 8?
No, he didn't make it to the top 8, so he actually got surpassed in the rankings. But when going into LVO, I think he was the top player.
Got it.
He's got a list with 3 Riptides, 3 Commanders, all with like quadruple cyclic ion blasters, and like 54 drones. And he got first turn. And sorry, I think you dropped out there for a second, but he got first.
I was caught.
Oh, you're fine.
Sorry.
He got first turn, and there was no line of sight blocking terrain in the middle of the table, and he blew away half my army, to be honest. So I was pretty much on the back foot there. My turn goes okay. I kill a unit of drones and a couple Fire Warrior units, and I actually get kill more than him. So it wasn't a horrible start, I guess. His turn 2 comes around. He kills like another half of my army. My turn 2 comes. I drop down my robots, my infiltrators, and everything like that, and they all fail their charges after getting shot by like 400 Tau units for the greater good Overwatch.
Every time.
So guess what's sitting in the middle of nowhere, doing whatever he wants to do with all my units now, turn 3. And he killed all my Deep Strikers, so he killed all my robots, killed all my infiltrators, killed the rest of my infantry. And I think basically all I had left on the table going into my turn 3 was my Knight Castellan, which was undamaged at the time. He had basically ignored it, which to his credit was probably the right move.
Yeah.
By this time, he's still got like 20 drones on the board. I can't hurt any of his Riptides, and I can't hurt any of his commanders. So the only thing I can do is shoot at them and hope he fails some of his, savior protocols, which he did not. So I kill a couple more drones. His turn 4 comes around, and he just kills my knight, tables me turn 4. So that was my second loss of the day. And going into round 6, I now know that I can't win best AdMech player. There are 4 AdMech players that are 5-0, including Justin Lois, who ended up in the top 8, Rickard Nielsen, who ended up in the top 20, Michael Sarapata, maybe a few others that are all 5-0. So there's no way I'm winning best AdMech player. There's no way I'm winning best Art Mechanicus player. And I'm just really not feeling it at this point going into round 6. I go up against the Guard Castellan list again. So the Catachin Brigade, with the Castellan Knight. This time he gets first turn. He kills my knight turn 1, and wraps up like half my army, and I lose. I think I lose that game on like turn 3. So yeah, so that was my LVO experience. Sorry, I rambled on for a really long time there, but I think it's important because, and I've mentioned this earlier in the podcast before you guys came on, but the podcast is called The Primary Objective because I'm trying to better myself as a player, better myself as a painter. And my objective, this year is to maybe win that best AdMech player this year, do a lot better in my painting score. I started a painting stream I'm doing weekly. I'm trying to get my army looking like it's the best I can possibly make it going into next year's LVO. So we'll see what happens, and we'll go from there. What do you guys have planned?
Yeah, Corey, what do you got planned?
Me, I'm switching away from Necrons. I'm kind of tired of not having any options for any units. So at the moment, I won't be able to get to too many out-of-state events this year, so I'm going to be mostly focusing on kind of expanding my knowledge in the close combat phase, since that doesn't happen with Necrons. So I'm switching kind of to I'm going to be running Slaanesh. I have a lot of Slaanesh models. It's going to be my primary focus, but for local events, I've got a slowly building up kind of my Imperium meta chasing list. Which, yeah,
It's always the chase.
It's I want to at least. I feel like the year that I'm not going to be super competitive, I'm okay with it. I went really hard for Necrons this year. Got number 2, which was kind of depressing. Red Pal got number 1, but he deserves it a lot more than me. So I think getting number 1 Slaanesh should be pretty easy, even though that's not a real category.
Yeah,
you're right. I think you're fighting in the chaos category,
Demons.
aren't you? And that's a tough road. Oh yeah, he's fighting in the demons, so it's a tough road no matter which way you look at it.
I think I'd probably end up leaning more towards CSM if I did, because CSM will be a lot easier, I think, than pure demons.
I think you're about to be 100% wrong about that.
I very well could be.
You realize like an entire new Chaos Space Marine line, and supposedly a new Chaos Space Marine Codex are coming out with it.
I did not hear about the Codex, but I totally forgot about the line because
they're literally. So I just read the article today. They're literally replacing like 15 different kits, supposedly. So,
ooh,
yeah.
That makes me kind of sad.
Well,
like all of my old ones, I'm so OCD about having not old models. I hate it.
Yep. It's gonna be fun.
There's also a rumor, especially from the AOS side, which I'm also involved in. That Slaanesh is coming out this year, and when Slaanesh drops for one, it drops for both. So you gotta see that.
That rumor's been down for so long.
You know what those rumors come from, though, right? Like in reality, all of these things are true. Like all of these things are going to happen. It's just the timeline in which they happen.
Yes.
Like obviously, Slaanesh is going to get fixed and replaced, and new models and a new battle tome for AOS, and updated 40k data sheets along with that. Obviously, Fulgrim and Emperor's Children are going to come out at some point. Obviously, Angron and World Eaters, and all these different things are coming out. Like it'd be dumb for Games Workshop not to release them. It's just when does it happen? It's the same thing for like the Mechanicum units getting 40k rules. At the last Warhammer event a few weekends ago, they said, hey, the Mechanicum 40k rules are our top priority right now. The beta rules are getting done. Well, it's been that way for 2 years. So, when that actually happens, it all does happen. It's just going to take some time.
No, and I'm okay with waiting. I'm pretty actually excited. I think I just wanted to go with Slaanesh because it's kind of the exact opposite of Necrons. They're close combat. They're weak. And even if they're not very competitive, I'm excited for the future and getting just kind of a foot ahead of the game.
What about Sisters of Battle? I thought that was something you were working on.
My primary paint scheme is for Sisters of Battle, but quote unquote controlled by Necrons. So I'm not a traitor. But I've got so far 3 repulsors, Celestine, and the guards, and then I think I really like the idea of Celestine and the old Sisters Codex. The new Codex I actually really enjoyed it, but at LVO, I faced Sisters, and it made me really question wanting to play them. So it just a quick breakdown of what happened is, I wasn't too familiar with the Sisters Codex when it came out. I was like, okay, this is going to take a lot of time to kind of sit down and think about and focus. Yep. And I've got LVO ahead of me, so screw it. Anyway, so the guy plays basically a Castellan and everything else is Sisters. And with me running the Doom sites, my first initial goal was, okay, I need to find out if I get turn 1, where to drop my stratagem. And I'm like, hey, all right, so walk me through your characters. He goes, I have a 4-up invuln on everybody within 6 inches from this guy, and everybody's within 6 inches. So I immediately stopped listening to everything else and just started planning my attack phase.
The 4-up invuln combo is pretty good.
It's nuts, but so I drop the stratagem down, and I roll the only time in the whole LVO I rolled hot on that stratagem. I killed a character with a 4-up invuln. I killed another canoness, a repulsor, or half of a repulsor, half of an exorcist, and a sister squad.
I think you mean a repressor, just so you know.
Repressor. Sorry, what was I saying?
Repulsor. That's the Space Marine Primaris vehicle.
Repressor.
Yeah.
So I took down half of his army turn 1. The guy went on tilt and just didn't even want to play the game the rest.
Oh, really?
He still played it, and he still was friendly, but, I mean, you could just tell he was just like, I didn't know Necrons could do that, and I was like, well, that's kind of a benefit of playing the Necrons. Nobody knows what you can do.
Yep.
But
I told you.
No, and you're not wrong. He was a really good guy and had probably one of the most beautifully themed painted armies I've ever seen. It was baseball themed, which was interesting. Odd, yeah. But he did a really good job. And since then, I've really kind of put a hold on doing the Sisters, but I think I kind of just need to get over it because there's not a whole lot of people that do orbital bombardment type stratagems in the current meta.
Space Marines, if you really feel like spending those like 3 or 4 CP, I guess.
They do, and they need to have the right kind of character for it.
Yeah.
You do see it, but it's not really super often, and as a Sisters player, I would just know to counter that with a better deployment. I went up against Richard Cozart in my 4th round. He was, I think, at the time before LVO, he was the number 1 demon player, but Root passed him. Or not Root, Dearth.
Josh Dearth, yeah.
Josh Dearth. And he saw, as soon as I sat down, because it was, the game after everyone gets to spend the whole night researching your opponent, sits down and goes, okay, tell me about your Necron stratagem with the Doom Sights. And I was just like, shit. Yep, so I walked him through it, because if you ask, I'll tell you everything about it. And he just made, the only time he ever put characters within 6 inches of each other is when he was baiting me. And he baited me hard, but honestly, I was not really awake yet and took the bite, and also screwed up which unit I should have re-rolled my Doomscythe stratagem on, and had a pretty rough game, but I think I should probably go back to Sisters just because as long as you can counter deploy, you're going to be all right.
Well, personally, I think you'll have more fun with Sisters of Battle. Not a lot of people play them. There's a lot more combos you can put together just because they're Imperium. And I don't know, it's just something different. So I've actually considered maybe just playing my Carcharodons for part of this season as well, since I have such a nice Carcharodon army that never sees play. So, but we'll see.
I think another big reason I haven't played Sisters is because I don't want to invest in
old models,
third party or old models right now until I see the new ones. Yep. And I don't have the basic units. And I know you've got some over there, so if you want to just like lend them to me.
I could not find them.
Oh, damn.
I looked and I looked and I looked, and I'm like, dude, I had 20 Sisters of Battle and they're nowhere, man. I'm sorry.
I'll just have to talk to Lando on our team and just be like, hey, you're not even playing right now. Just I'll give you collateral. Just let me play.
Well, Randall.
Speaking of Sisters of Battle, I chose, and I know I told you guys this earlier, but I decided to take this season on hard mode after doing all of AOS last season and just doing locals for 40k. I decided to go with Grey Knights, and that's going to be a rough one.
Yeah,
so
this might be a slopier, but
so I decided to do the smart thing, and I reached out and I got in touch with Nick Nadavati. And him and I are working together. He loves my lofty ambition of playing Grey Knights this season. He's excited by the idea of it. And he gave me the first draft of what could potentially be my main Grey Knight list, right? And it goes something like this. Drago, Voldus, 3 strike squads, pretty bare bones, a 10-man paladin squad, because, the bolter rules.
Grey Knight Terminators.
And the paladins are 3 wounds. It's just phenomenal. And then the second part of that, there's 2 other so I was the battalion there. And then you go down and there's like 2 spearheads of Sisters of Battle. I'll be damned. Actually, it's 3 squads of 15 sisters, 3 exorcists, a couple of characters to fill on the rest. But that's essentially
Celestine?
This. Yep, and Celestine. Yep,
okay.
She's in there.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound
over the sister part.
It doesn't sound terrible. You know who I wish was still in the Grey Knight Codex? The Ghost dude. Do you remember him?
Oh, yeah, he would just come, 5th edition.
Yeah, he had like 5 Ghost Terminators with him. That guy was sweet.
They really need to bring his ass back.
I wish they would fix Inquisition as well. Like, Grey Knight should just be able to bring Inquisition instead of them being separate like they are now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, guys, we're a little bit over half an hour now, and this podcast has probably gone on a bit longer than I had originally intended just from the interview with Adam. So I think I'm going to go ahead and call it now, but is there any last comments from you guys?
Yeah, I'll take this one. We got Genghis Khan coming up this weekend. There's two RTTs for 40K happening. One old school single battalion style, 2,000 point army with full painting standards, and then on Sunday we're going to do a 2,000 point ITC, just regular 40K event, and everything's going to be a little lowered. So I know there's a handful of us going out there. At least one other guy from our team's going to be there as well. And next week maybe we can talk. Yeah, we're expensive. I'm not going to sit here and lie about it.
Yeah. Speaking of events, I do want to plug that the Colorado Cutthroats does have an event coming up as well, which is a grand tournament, the Cutthroat GT, and that is April 6th to the 7th. So if any of you guys that are out there listening feel like coming to Denver, which I don't know why you would, it's expensive as fuck, but if you do, we are running a grand tournament. It's a lot of fun. We hold it in the Westminster Hobby Town that's up here. We play down the aisles and we take up pretty much the whole store, but we give a ton of prizes out. So I work really hard for us to have a lot of raffles and really fun events and prizes to do. So all right, guys. Well, I think this is going to wrap it up for our first episode. Thank you so much for coming on, and we'll see you guys next week.
Later, man.
Later.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's episode. Once again, my name is Justin Kemple, and this has been The Primary Objective. If you've enjoyed the show, please give us a like on Facebook, check us out on YouTube and Twitch, and if you can, go to iTunes and leave us a good rating as well.